Coming up as the NBA draft looms next month, we take a look at the latest rumor that suggests maybe, just maybe, Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets want to get up board and get themselves a Dylan Harper stud point guard in their backcourt. We discuss if it's possible. All coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Marbeck. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen today. We're 100% free on all those great platforms. And Doug, as we dive into what is a pretty substantial rumor, even if it's just turning out the mill a little bit here heading towards the draft, we also kick off our final week, counting it down, 5 up, 5 to go of our time here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
Yeah, man. Obviously, sad days ahead here, but better days ahead for Locked On Nets as a feed. So that'll keep going. We'll have some stuff about that later on in the week here. But this is a cool draft. Just getting into Nets, the things that are important. Obviously, the Nets draft. This is a cool draft because you do have these teams, not Dallas, who luck boxes its way into number one, but at 2 and 3, you have these teams in the Spurs and to some degree the Sixers too. Well, actually, maybe a lot of degree the Sixers, who it's like. Yeah, everyone would love to have the second and third pick in the draft, but they're at like slightly different places with their build and like sort of who the roster is, and where it kind of does matter to draft on fit and sort of what you need. Most teams that are up at the top of the draft is like just draft the best player and we'll figure it out later. But you do have these two situations where the teams are at slightly different timelines. You could make strong cases that they should just go absolutely for it now, or they have bad contracts. And so most times when you get the second or third pick, you're like, okay, well, let's just do it. But these teams can make compelling cases to not do it here. And with the Spurs with Harper, to some, the lesser extent with, because Harper's, I think people see as sort of like a no doubt number 2 pick.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting, as the rumors would suggest, that they might be thinking about getting out of this pick in order to really make a massive upgrade now for a win now piece around Wembanyama and let's just get going. And then De'Aaron Fox and Vassell and all these other guys. It's fascinating. I don't know. We'll talk about whether the Nets are in the party here, but you just really never see stuff like this happen for obvious reasons about who's going to be top of the draft in terms of talent.
And you mentioned it too, specifically with the Spurs, because the conversation of, is it possible? We know with the Giannis looking to get out of Milwaukee, and we feel like that trade is going to be impending this offseason. So now maybe the Spurs are having two different conversations, right? The one where we go all in and we go get Giannis and him with Wemby, and that sounds great. Or the version of it where what are some other pieces maybe that are out there? And you say that because Milwaukee doesn't have the 8th pick like the Brooklyn Nets do, right? Or one of these other lottery picks that you can go ahead and put into the mix to have that conversation. I will say it's funny to be using the Spurs as the example right now. It's funny to be in a position where you have Wembanyama, so you have this generational talent on your roster, and you're also maybe on the precipice of making a franchise-altering decision about, do you just draft Dylan Harper at 2? Do you trade out of it? And then what's the player that you get at 7, 8, 9, 10, wherever you end up landing, or going for Giannis? So from an NBA narrative standpoint, we've talked about this a lot over the years. Even when you have some of the guys, even when you think you have the guys, you're still always reaching an inflection point about, are we going a slight left here, a slight right, staying down the middle? So even when you have locked in talent, you still have to make that next critical decision to make sure you keep pushing towards being a contender and hopefully winning championships.
Yeah, this is what the ever-changing nature of the NBA just dictates, that you're kind of just never set. You're kind of always making these decisions, these dynamic decisions on the fly about what's best. Now, I think they'd be best served just drafting Harper and trading, De'Aaron Fox or something like that, and just be having Harper be on Wemby's timeline and just call it a day. But I don't think that's sort of how they view it. Also, we should say that I guess according to some sources, Giannis met with the Bucks and he's not going to seek a trade. Feels a little smoke and mirror because they're going to still try to contend. It's sort of impossible to envision how that even happens with Lillard's contract and no assets and no other players. But I feel like that's a little bit of a smoke screen to be everyone gets good guy points and then the Bucks get overwhelmed by a trade. I think that's my
I can't
putting it in quotes.
it.
Yeah, I think it's this is where everyone feels good about what they said. And the wink, wink, nod, nod is if you get a huge package and I kind of agree to go somewhere, then we're all just going to say that like that's what we meant to do. But for now, I'm not going to request a trade and blah blah blah. Like, so it just feels impossible to think they could contend with any of this stuff. But where the Spurs sit, I mean, let's just cut to it here. Then do you think the Nets should or could be in the mix to move all the way up here to 2? Like, they've been sort of rumored. Nets are in every rumor now because they have tons of picks and they have tons of cap space. So like they have just ultimate flexibility, no talent, but they have ultimate flexibility in terms of like, I'm just kidding, in terms of what they can do. Do you think that this is like at all realistic around them making a push to get up to number 2?
Realistic, yes, because teams are going to be open to these things, right? Realistic, yes. The real question about should they be doing it, right? This is where it's so funny. Now, if this was for Cooper flagging number 1, I think I know it would be a different type of conversation, but that's not on the table. Dylan Harper's awesome. Dylan Harper's great. We said it'd be awesome to luck into that second spot with the odds and still be able to get a franchise backcourt player. But it's a different conversation if you're talking about we give you the 8th overall pick. So if you're the Spurs, you're only going to move down 6 spots. So you're still going to get a lottery talent. And we talked about those guys. It's a different tier, fine. But then what? 19? 26? A future first? Yeah. At some point, now you're doing the equation about how much is the prospect of Dylan Harper's career worth? And I even if he ends up coming to the place where, 7 years from now, we're having superstar trade conversation about where is Dylan Harper going to go and what team's going to give up a haul of draft picks. That happens. It's happening with Giannis. It happened with KD, right? It happens with superstars all the time. But to give up assets on the projected value of a career is really, I think, hard to do. So I find myself saying, I think Dylan Harper is great, but if I'm going to give up 3 first-round picks in this year, maybe not, I don't know what the math looks like, but whatever I'm going to give up, that's significant. And then you will be watching whoever the Spurs take at 8 and what that player ends up doing, and at 19, and there will be that critical thinking about where is the true value in a player like this relative to all the picks you're going to make. I would say the Nets shouldn't do it if I'm making the case, but I think it is at least on the table because it's incredible value for San Antonio, who already has their cornerstone in Wemby.
Right, exactly. And so if they were like, somehow getting like Cam Johnson plus some later picks or something like that, they were getting a player, maybe like you're having a real conversation about it. I think what you're saying is if you're swapping out the 8th pick to move up to 2 and giving up some other stuff, that's like a tougher pill to swallow with where the Nets are, like just in their overall talent base, right? So it's like, let's agree. Let's just even say, okay, well, Harper, let's say he's a surefire thing. I think he's pretty close to like being surefire, like all-star quality, right? Like just the way he plays. I think it's not surefire. That's a tough claim to make. I think it's like for where he is compared to other draft picks, like he ranks very high on the high floor, understanding that no one's a lock, right? Like so lots of things can happen. No one's a lock. I think the way he projects as good as like any other player coming into drafts. That's especially a guard type. Right? Like that's just kind of like playing like that. At the same time, well, I have actually one more point about this because there's another factor that factors in here with where the Nets are. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, because I was going to say, we're going to go to a break here because when we come back, I think this is what is fascinating about it because I also can paint this other version of doing this thing that does become very fascinating from a Nets perspective. So we'll hear Doug's thoughts on where he sees the Nets currently in their timeline and what it would mean to get Dylan Harper in this moment. But also, if you got Dylan Harper in this moment, how would that make, as I just talked about at the top, an inflection point for the franchise to start making different decisions now as opposed to over the next couple of seasons? We'll do that here in just one moment.
All right, before we get to that, tell you my friends over at Monarch Money. Look, you ever check that bank account and wonder where'd all my money go? You got dining out, you got online shopping, you got entertainment, inflation. It's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO. Gives you full visibility and control over your finances. Look, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You track all those accounts, investments, spending in one place. And you just stop managing your money. You start building that wealth, baby. Maybe you start using Monarch Money. Realize how much you're spending on food delivery on some of those apps that you haven't quit yet. You're going to budget smarter. You're going to save more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Monarchmoney.com.
All right. As we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, we think about where the Brooklyn Nets are. What do it mean maybe to go get Dylan Harper? So before I give the other version of this scenario, you were talking about where the Nets stand in their current timeline, the outlook, right? Like the agenda. You trade up and you get Dylan Harper, but you know you're still a lot of pieces away from building out a competitive roster, excuse me.
They're just so far away in talent. Like, they have no cornerstone pieces. Now, maybe you say Dylan Harper is a cornerstone piece, and that's where you begin to build off of, and that makes sense.
Right.
It's just, they just have like so little else to draw on at this point that's like proven to be anything you need in terms of like making like a long push into a really winning franchise. And even the guys you can squint and see it on are off the timeline age-wise anyway. So it's like, at this point, they can make a very strong case that they just need to take as many bites at the apple as possible when it comes to the draft, and to reduce draft picks around high floors around other guys is a close call. Now, again, almost any other team can make the case, like any other team that even is bad right now, if they had as many picks as the Nets had, could make a case where getting up to Harper to be on the same timeline as like one or two of their other guys is like, let's say you're Charlotte or something like that. It's like, well, we got Brandon Miller. Maybe we pair him with LaMelo. And now we have Dylan Harper. That's like a weirder one, but like, you don't understand what I'm saying. It's like, now we pair him with Harper, and now we have like a three-person thing. It's like, okay, so I can swap 2 or 3 picks out to do that, because I'm like really consolidating, and I'm
the Jazz could have that kind of conversation too,
exactly.
Right?
It's like Lauri Markkanen and like some of these other guys, or like whatever. Some of these other young guys they have. The Nets just like have so nothing in terms of that like they just can't even make the case to do it. So, okay, you can make the case because Harper's good, but you can't make the case that you're consolidating assets to like really start making a push into like this current timeline. Yeah. So at that point, and we know this draft is so deep, we've done all this stuff on this where these guys, like your boy Renaud's like kind of bumping up the draft. Like he really showed out. Like some of these guys are going to be in the 20s, could be like real dudes. And so, yeah, because the Nets just have so little, and that's even if you're like the most bullish Cam Thomas person in the world or something, even then you're not there. And so I think you just can't really make the case to consolidate assets into a guy when you have so few other things to sort of draw on, except for these draft picks and it's a deep draft. So I just think you make the case, stay home. If you can get it like for Cam Johnson and like a later pick, maybe, but like, you gotta just take all the draft picks. Does that make sense? Or maybe just or auction off some of these future ones, like the Knicks picks or something. Like, I just think that the Nets, which isn't realistic, so I don't think it's worth it. But like, does that make sense? I just think they're so far away that they just have to just draft every guy they can and hope that they land on. They hope some of these guys turn into like real hits.
I tend to fall on that side of it. And by the way, while Wemby and the Spurs would be saying, "Hey, we're talking about like a win now window," you know, as you mentioned, let's say it's gonna be pick 8, it's gonna be Cam Johnson, and it's also gonna be pick 27. Like, let's just say, right? And is that enough or not? Who cares? But maybe they also like poke around. They go, I know, we're trying to push into win now window. We like Noah Clowney though too. Like, he seems like a good development. You know, he seems like a good guy that actually could really develop and help our team. Maybe we want to throw him in the mix, right? So maybe they end up actually like eating away even a little bit of the young talent. Now, what I will say is, the case for the Brooklyn Nets to do this would be, okay, San Antonio, you want pick 8, you want, and you know, you'd want to keep Cam Johnson around in this version, but you want pick 8, you want Cam Johnson, and you want another pick. Okay, fine. Deal done. Milwaukee, how many first round picks does it take for Giannis? And now we do what we talk about the Spurs thinking about doing it too. You know, oh, do they want to be there? Do they want to trade out with Milwaukee to get Giannis in with Wemby? Now you end up saying, Brooklyn, what are we going to be? We're going to bring in Giannis. We're going to get ourselves Dylan Harper, who's our future guy. We're also going to kind of kick open this ability to win now. We're going to say we still have Cam Thomas on this roster. That's a nice backcourt combination there. And you actually do open up. Now, is that championship contention? No. But by the way, they're going to have plenty of money. They can bring in contracts. Even after Giannis, they can shed off. If they send out Cam Johnson, and we're just having this conversation with a guy on the network around Memphis in our mock draft, just saying, oh, maybe the Grizzlies want to reset. And you and I were talking privately about like Jaren Jackson Jr. and $25 million right now. I was like, oh, guess what? The Brooklyn Nets can absorb that entire contract in the upcoming season without having to send a single dollar out. So there is a world where if you were going to do this pivot, then I would say pivot and then pivot hard. And let's go ahead and kick it open, because the version of just getting Dylan Harper and saying you have that cornerstone piece, to your point, still leaves you saying, okay, so over the next couple of years, we'll try to add to this roster. We'll try to sign some guys. We'll have cap space. but it still leaves ambiguity if you don't have that next move. Whereas if Giannis is available, then I think you do start to have a different type of conversation about what you're building out in the short term and over the next 4 or 5 years.
And what we're also seeing, I mean, the case too to just stay home here is that what we're seeing is from the NBA, because even in reference to the moves you just said, what we're seeing from the NBA right now, at least with the teams that are left, is that like you have to have like incredibly deep rosters. Like you just can't get by.
That's
like there's the one superstar is just like not doing it. Like it literally didn't do it for any of these teams. Like you had to have full starting fives with like a couple guys that could come off the bench to be able to sort of pivot into the right kind of strategy in the moment. Like all these teams, and what everyone's going to say, okay, I mean, everyone backruns this about like where all these guys draft pick wise were, because all these guys that are left except for Ant were basically lower draft picks. And it's okay, I get it, but it does speak to the idea of, one, for sure, different stars can come from different points in the draft. No one's ever made contention on this. It's just that like the higher percentage comes from the top. Like it's not. No one's ever said that like they can't come from, like clearly they can come from other places. But what we're seeing is like you just need to have like a fully deep team, like especially in this hard capped era. Like the more flexibility you have at being like 6-7 guys deep around like real, like very good star at the top. They all have a star: Brunson star, SGA star, Ant star, Halliburton star. Although it's like a little unconventional, a little different than the other guys, but still star. Then no weaknesses. Like the rest of the 4 or 5 next guys up, is that like having a deep, talented roster is very, very important now. And it's going to probably continue to be this way as it gets harder and harder to team build. Going forward with some of the way these guys make it. And which is another case to be like, just go for depth and just don't. They have the Nets, like one advantage right now is they're sitting on a ton of draft picks that will be cost controlled for years and years and years.
Yeah. They
just have to kind of stay with that, I think, and just build out, organic, whatever you want to call it, a team that has balance and depth. That's just the way that things are just kind of going in the NBA now. And I don't think that's going to really change. I think that there's a few guys that are worth it at max contracts because they're worth way more. Giannis is worth way more than a max contract. Luka worth way more than Jokic. If they actually had real dollar values in this, these guys would be like double or something like that. After that, though, like you just have to just go for depth across the roster and like and just have a balanced team, because that's just the way to win. And I think that the way to do that for the Nets is to just stay with what they have and build as much talent as they possibly can through the draft.
Yeah, when you talk about picking 8, 19, 26, and 27, obviously this year, but then their own next year. And then that 2027 draft class, right? When you're talking about 3 more picks. And even in this one, by the way, because people keep reminding, they bring this up consistently, and I think it is worth noting. Like picking 36th in a deep draft class this year in the second round, like that matters. Like being at the top of the second round again is also actually way different than when we talk about it, in years prior. So you're getting
that's like a mid-20s. Other drafts, this would be like a 20s pick. Like that's just this draft is crazy deep. It's crazy deep. So it's like a 1 year you want to kind of stick with it.
So having these 5 picks this year and then next year your own, but then those 3 picks in 2027, right? So to drill it back home to what you said, 25, 26, 27, it's 3 drafts. It's, 3 years where you're going to have a massive influx of young, controllable talent, and then you can make your choices from there. And listen, yes, if the picks don't work out, if some of them don't hit, no, you don't get to turn the card back in and say, I'll take a different first round pick later. Like we get that. But at some point, you have to trust that building with this much assets in these deep draft classes is going to be the best benefit for long-term success. Hopefully, I think that that's the way the Brooklyn Nets are going to go here. But when you hear these rumors and the speculation, it at least does perk your ears about like, oh, are Sean Marks and the Nets really having these discussions? Because it's different. We'll talk about in a second than taking big swings on superstars via trade. This is potentially taking a big swing to get the young franchise player. Sure. Is that something they should be doing? We'll continue the discussion here on the other side. All right. As we tie a pretty little bow on today's Locked On Nets episode, number 5 in our countdown to 0 of Doug and myself. Parting ways. Guys don't know this. We're thinking about Thelma and Louise style, but we haven't confirmed that between you and I, but it's probably the right way.
You go first.
Of the week.
I would just say you go first.
You'll be right behind me, right? Yeah, but you're right behind me.
I am right behind you, pal. Don't you worry.
So as we talk about though, we're gonna get back into the draft here a little bit because you mentioned there's players now that we've been giving a little bit of buzz and chatter to the last couple of weeks, and now they're jumping up the board here. I don't know. By the end of this week, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get myself to be like, it's probably just Cedric Howard at 8. That makes sense. It's probably Renat at 19. Like that makes sense. Like let's just go ahead and bump everybody up because we feel so good about what we've accomplished covering these guys. In the end, we both agree that the Nets are going to stay at home. You think like this is going to be picking at 8, and that this, even if it's a discussion, that the Nets are not ultimately going to end up making this move. Do you think that that's the case? And put percentages on if you want. We always like to do that, but like it is fascinating that it's coming up. We're far enough away from the draft that it feels like it could be still just kind of a, chattery smoke conversation. But this is the first time we've heard this come up, and we are as close as we've been to the draft.
I think they will try. I think they'll try to get there. And I think that if it's actually on the table that the Spurs would trade this pick, the Nets will not have like the best package to do it. Like I've kind of felt this way about some other stuff with them. It's like, I just think that like, yeah.
And do you think that this could be like a little bit of like San Antonio maybe saying like, and now we'll leverage this. Like maybe we are interested in Giannis. And so, hey, by the way, Brooklyn's interested. Like maybe we have some opportunity here. And then that allows Milwaukee to go, okay, yeah, we'd like Dylan Harper. Let's have the conversation, right?
You trade that pick if you're going to get Giannis, if you're going to get Kevin Durant, if you're going to get like someone else that like you can win a championship with Wemby. It's not for Cam Johnson in the 8th pick. Like that's just not a championship move for what could be like generational-ish talent, right? Or just like let's call it number 1 in many other year pick, talent, right? Like what Dylan Harper would be. And so got Cam Johnson plus like the 8th pick just like isn't good enough to do that, I don't think. Even from an optics standpoint, forget from a basketball standpoint. So I think the Nets will try, and ultimately the deal just won't even be good enough anyway, because they'll be like, okay, well, again, Durant, even though it's like a weird timeline, but like clearly Durant plus Wemby, like that's championship level talent right there together, right? De'Aaron Fox, those 3 guys together, like forget, like you could do that. Giannis, clearly, like some of these other guys who like might be available, maybe that's just the 2. Like that's what you do it for. Other than that, it's just not good enough to just trade to get like, it just wouldn't make sense. Like what more draft picks? That's not what they want. They want guys that they can pair with Wemby right now to win a championship. If you're trading you're trying to win a championship.
Thing. You just
and no one has a higher inflated idea about their own player than like when Nets fans are like Cam Johnson, they need a wing. It's like, that's just not good enough. It's not good enough for the number 2. Like everyone thinks I'm the biggest wet blanket in the world when it comes to this stuff. And I know, by the way, it like doesn't get me good engagement and whatever. But people that kind of say this stuff, it's just being so intellectually dishonest. Like there's just no way you're going to get Cam Johnson plus the 8 picks for Dylan Harper.
Contingents that are like, Cam Johnson, we got to get rid of him. How do we jettison this contract? Or also, and then by the way, this is every fan base across every sport, right? We don't want him. He's not good enough. We don't need him here. His contract's too much. Hey, we're trying to trade up for the 2nd pick. Boy, would Cam Johnson be perfect for you guys? He's everything you need and wanted and so
solve
much
all your problems. Like it's just solve all your. So it's just like I think that to some degree, sort of what we said about the Giannis thing. It's like Nets will kind of get saved. And by the way, no one will become a bigger Dylan Harper fan than me the second the Nets got him. So like no worries there. But I actually think this one is close. This one is close. Like, cause it's like, he might be so good that it is worth jettisoning consolidating a couple picks to get it. Like, so I think it's like not a total no brainer, but the Nets just don't have what a team like the Spurs would be looking for in this situation, which is win now talent to go and win a championship with Victor Wembanyama, right? So they just are. It's just they don't have the horses to get it done. And so I think from that standpoint, the Nets, it's just not very realistic. I think they will try because I think that it's worth it to try. They clearly have wanted Harper. They were there at every game, every Rutgers game. They scattered the hell out of him like every team did. New Jersey, local. It's like there's a lot of things that line up here. I think they'll try. I just don't think their package will be good enough to sway San Antonio into trade. Because like, again, when you trade the number 2 pick, you have to get a star back. Like, because that player theoretically can be a star. It's pretty simple to me.
And we can, so, and I will though, on this, the conversation. So there's a couple things. One, I agree with you as far as where the Nets are going to land in this. Now from the Spurs side of it though, again, I'll keep tying this back into the Giannis conversation. But if the Spurs trading out of 2 gets them more significant draft capital that they can't get their hands on otherwise 1-to-1, and maybe Milwaukee saying like, we don't want necessarily Dylan, whatever the version of it is, maybe we do
but I
want
don't think
all
that's
of the
even
draft
right.
capital.
Yeah.
And you pass it through, so Nets picks end up in Milwaukee's lap that they're sending to,
Can I make one?
to San Antonio
Yeah,
move up. But again, that's still not controlling your own destiny, as we know when it comes to draft capital.
Exactly. That's actually the last point was the point I was going to make, is that I agree with you on the sense that like sometimes having lots of draft picks makes it more enticing. The one difference there is that when you know who the guy is going to be in the draft, then that changes it. Like, because a future pick, we just don't know. It's like too many things can happen. Here, it's like the number 2 pick, but it's not really. It's Dylan Harper, right? Like, it's just the guy. Like, so very few other times do you know, even if like even put it this way, even if they swapped it out for like 8 and other things, you're not even positive who it could be at 8 because all the guys you have your eye on could get taken right before. Here it's just like you're so locked into who it can be. That is actually considerably more valuable than future picks because it's the high pick and we know the exact guy. Whereas like we don't have to worry about lottery balls or other teams drafting in front of us or getting sniped or anything like that. So it's just worth more in this situation.
And I think too, it's like you open up that other part of it, these other teams we mentioned at the top, right? Different versions, packages, what have you. If the conversation is opening up about teams that want to move up the board, you got to look at players and everything else. But you can look if you're the San Antonio Spurs, maybe you're looking at 5 or at 6 or at these areas where the player that will get at 5 or 6 or 7 is different than at 8, right? Or 9 or 10 or et cetera, right? So if we think we can still get Jeremiah Fears, Trey Johnson, name the player, VJ Edgecombe, whatever it's going to look like, that version is different. It's why when we talked about the draft coming in after the Nets landed 8th, we went, shoot, because you're just outside of some of these critical players that you'd like to have. What I will say is there's versions of this about things we're going to do this week as we close out our time, but as the feed, as Doug said, always says at the top, we'll continue on heading towards the draft. Resetting our board, right? Like where does everybody sit now? Because there's a lot of guys that need to be moved down to make room for some of these better players that are coming up. If the Brooklyn Nets are at 8, are we having the conversation about, somebody calls? Do we want to trade down? Will we move down to 10 to justify taking player X? I think there's a lot of things that are building out for the Brooklyn Nets here. And then some have said, fans, condense 26 and 27 and 19 to get up to get guy X, right? Like 2 players, 4 players. The blessing and the curse of having all these picks for the Brooklyn Nets is there will be endless speculation and scrutiny on whatever they choose to do and what every team around them does. If San Antonio trades at a 2 and it's not with Brooklyn, the conversation is going to be, should the Brooklyn Nets have made that move and thrown whatever it took to get that, right? If they stay at 8, they take the player. Did they take the guy too high? If they trade back, did they miss out on the play? Like this is going to be such a fascinating lead up. And then the post-mortem on the draft for the Brooklyn Nets is going to be absolutely insane, which is going to be fun for the fan base and probably also like terrifying and agonizing.
Oh yeah, if you're a Nets fan, it can't go any other way. It can't be easy. It can never be easy. Like nothing can. They just can't get like. If it was the 2 pick and you just take Dylan Harper and it's easy and no one ever questions it, or it's Cooper Flag or whatever.
Harper, thank you.
Like then it's just done. Even if they had gotten 3, it'd be endless. It'd be endless hand wringing around Ace or VJ. Like there would be endless.
Yep.
And whoever and it would be years before the conversation was like put into set into stone about like if they got it right or wrong. Right. So that would even be Nets. That would be even Nets themed to like go at 3 and not have somehow Ace Bailey go from surefire number 2 to all of a sudden like should he be top 4 or something like that.
Right.
Like that would be such classic territory. So can never be easy. No, that's just the way being a Nets fan is. A reminder to everyone out there. We're gonna get our look. Act like we've been here with this Knicks series. It's just too much.
I got to tell you,
I shouldn't have started this
out there, guys. Getting pretty
28
brutal out
and a half minutes in this. Like you got to just tone it down. Nets fans are already behind the 8 ball on terms of like just having a franchise that's been like had a little bit of a rough run for 25 straight years or whatever. But at the same time,
give or take,
like the part where the Nets fans like would sell one of their kids for the Nets to lose, the Knicks to lose this series. It's just so bad. Like you got to act like you've been there. Root for the Pacers. If you want another team to win, fine. But the part where you just think it's like you're winning by like taking a lap on a Knicks loss is such a bad. Are you with me on this? It's like,
of course,
just be better. Be better. It's so lame. It's so lame. It's like,
like as I said, like you're like what? Ask that segment of the Nets fan base, legitimately the question is, do you care more about the Brooklyn Nets trying to build up their franchise and be competitive and go for winning championships eventually? Or would you rather just see the Knicks lose and have misfortune befall them? Because it just feels like that's more important to a certain segment of the fan base. Guess what? Knicks win a championship, doesn't change anything for the Brooklyn Nets. Knicks lose in the Eastern Conference Final, doesn't change anything for the Brooklyn Nets. I know there's picks and all that jazz. Great. It does not change what's going on for your franchise and what's going to happen with your picks and your players. No, it's my least favorite thing in sports. You see it especially in the NFL, Giants fans, and at least the Eagles. Oh no, what didn't matter. It doesn't matter what happens. Just what's that classic line? Farm your own land. Like, just be there, man. Enjoy what's going on in front of you, and don't somehow think you're going to get satisfaction out of someone else's misery. That's not just sports. That's life. That's not just fandom. Being happy about someone else's failings does not improve your life. It actually makes it significantly worse.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know the saying is like misery loves company, which is like kind of true, but it's really just like misery loves misery. And so if you're just going to be, if you're just going to be like, if you're worried about someone else being miserable, then you're miserable. So the other way to take this is to just say, whatever happens, happens, and just get out there. I hate to turn this like philosophical, but man, there's some Nets fans out there that need like some time on the couch, because it's like, it's like so overboard. I can't even believe it. It's like, just whatever, who cares? And I'm sure we'll get flack for it. Okay. With that said, go leave a comment on YouTube about how much you hated that little sidebar into Knicks fan. And by the way, leave a comment, but then make sure you subscribe. Number one way to help. So leave a comment, say how much you hated it, and then subscribe to the podcast.
I want to be really clear here too as we get out the door that, like, you got to. I'm going to pat ourselves on the back. Look at the energy we're bringing, guys. We're winding down the time. It's the final week. You don't see us slowing down or stopping. If anything, it seems like we're actually having more problems and getting a little bit more amped up than we've ever been.
We only know one way to go. I only know one gear. I only know one gear. Third and a half. It's shifting from third to fourth. That's the only gear I know. All right.
By the way, I don't shift well. There's a lot of grinding. Anyway, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, for the fifth time? What do I say? For the first time, for the last time this week. I don't know, something like that. This about sums up my tenure. The end of a melody is not its goal, but nonetheless, had the melody not reached its end, it would not have reached its goal either. A parable from one Fried Rich Netchie.
Oh boy, geez. We'll talk about ending on a overrated note. We'll be with that said, one of the all-time great poets. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
It's about contrasting the styles that we bring to the podcast, I think, at times. Basketball.